Dr. Smith, do you have a minute?
Ah, Dr. Brooks, it's been a while.
Yes, it has been, but, I've been looking through the file of SCP-020, it's a Keter class SCP. I'm surprised that the research data is insufficient.
Ah, yes, I've been getting reports of that all day. But I can assure you there's no need to worry. I already have Dr. Roanoke on the case.
Dr. Roanoke's back from vacation? Oh, that's nice to hear. It's a good thing we have our top researcher back now. We can finally get back to getting more information about these SCPs.
Don't get all soft on me now, Brooks. Please do make sure that Dr. Roanoke has all the tools necessary for his research.
Item number SCP-020. Object Class Keter. Special Containment Procedures. Sample of SCP-020 are stored in a series of sealed cultivation chambers inside a sealed containment room at Biological Research Area 12, which is accessible only via airlock. Nutrients are administered via automated robotic systems, as the cultivation chamber must remain sealed at all times. Hermetically sealed video surveillance cameras are installed within the containment room and must be checked daily for integrity. Any personnel entering the containment room must wear Biosafety Level 5 equipment, including rebreathers, and undergo full antifungal disinfection upon exiting. Description: SCP-020 is a fast-spreading fungal organism that is capable of affecting the senses and behavior of living creatures, including humans. Samples of SCP-020 exhibit an unknown effect that renders them effectively invisible to direct observation, even when under a microscope. SCP-020 is only visible to humans when viewed through photographic or video surveillance. Once SCP-020 forms a colony, usually within a human residence, it will produce spores that affect the behavior of humans around it. Affected individuals will increase the heat and humidity within their homes to create an environment more suitable for the growth of SCP-020. Affected subjects will become more sociable in many cases, and often invite acquaintances into their homes to further spread the organism. As the spores and mold colonies are invisible to the affected subjects, the mold may grow directly on living subjects. As the spores and colonies within the home approach critical concentration, the health of the affected human subjects will rapidly deteriorate, resulting in death. Further spread of the mold may occur as the bodies of the deceased subjects are encountered by emergency responders and healthcare agents, as well as transportation of the bodies to local morgues. SCP-020 was first encountered in where an undercover SCP agent noted dramatic personality changes in personnel working in a local hospital. Upon investigation by the containment team, it was discovered that almost civilians had been infected, as well as a majority of the town. The civilian population was terminated and the town incinerated under the cover of a local flash forest fire. To date, over 12 outbreaks of SCP-020 have been reported. Investigations are currently underway to determine the source of these outbreaks and possible preventative measures. Addendum 020-01. Excerpts from the audio-video mission recorders of Mobile Task Force ETA-10, See No Evil, during the initial containment of SCP-020 on T2 Lead. T2, moving into the Red House. T2 comm. Copy. UAV-1 is picking up one heat signature. T2 lead. Team 2 in place. Ready to... Fuck! T2-2. Door opening. At this point, a civilian woman appeared in the doorway, holding a kitchen knife. Video surveillance showed that nearly 2/3 of her face was covered by mold growths. Civilian woman. Well, hello there, gentlemen. Care to take a breather inside? T2 lead. On the ground! Drop the weapon! Civilian woman. Don't be silly! Come on in and stay a while. T2 lead. Stop where you are. Drop the weapon. Civilian woman. We just want to have some guests. Please, come in. T2-2. Drop the fucking weapon! It is assumed at this point the infected civilian noticed T2-4 carrying a primed incendiary weapon and lunged forward at the team members with a knife. Civilian woman. T2 lead. Open fire! Open fire! Off the record. The interesting aspect of SCP-020 is the fact that it's not as aggressive as one might originally think. Whereas other SCPs will lash out, maim, destroy, or defend themselves, this SCP could for all intents and purposes be considered at its core a parasitic growth, but with less severe consequences for the host initially. However, it is quite apparent that it does not want animals to discover its presence and eradicate it, which may hint at a fairly severe weakness it has or may be trying to hide. In nature, it can be seen in a lot of cases, weaknesses are disguised as strengths. With humans specifically, anytime a weakness may be present or any type of vulnerability is perceived, a person may react in anger. This anger triggers certain strengths to be used in them and aggressive behavior really to become the norm, which again is seen as a strength as opposed to a weakness. But looking into it from an objective standpoint, we may actually see that this is really coming from a point of weakness. Considering that SCP-020 is actively camouflaging itself from animal eyes, it may indicate that the simple act of avoiding it would be enough to take it out, and ultimately lead to its extinction. An organism this frail in turn, if seen normally, would never survive the test of time. This adaptation has turned this weakness into a strength by covering it up with the ability to meld into its environment. But the question is then, how might it be doing this? Well, there may be a couple of reasons for this particular lack of vision concerning any other organism. For humans in particular, when it comes to longer and shorter wavelengths of energy, this does not activate the photoreceptors within our eyes. Because of this, the mold appears to likely absorb visible light in some capacity while reflecting its background. This light that may also be reflected is of a shorter wavelength than our eyes can detect, effectively making it invisible. However, with a camera, these wavelengths are detected and turned into visible light that our eyes can then perceive, allowing us to view the organism without the cloaking that it would normally be able to use. The mold would very clearly be acting in its own best interest, seeing as it's a living organism. It could be postulated that this is much like any other parasitic organism on Earth. Once it invades the host, it's clear its goal would be to use the host for resources, but what's most intriguing about this organism is it appears to understand human social ability. Once a human is infected, they will begin to shift wildly in their personality. Even the most standoffish person will become hospitable and inviting. They will ask people to come back to their home, which would presumably be covered in this mold that nobody can see. Once there, the mold will enter their body through their lungs. Typically, we have immune functions in place to stop this from happening, but it would be apparent that the mold overwhelms the local macrophages. Moving from the lungs, the mold would then enter the bloodstream and eventually reach the blood-brain barrier of the brain itself. Here, it appears to be able to move into the neurological area of the brain outside of these blood vessels and begin altering the functions of the nervous system. In some ways, this is aggression, as seen with the old lady with a knife. However, even while brandishing a knife, she was still attempting to be social, completely controlled. At this point, it's clear the brain is no longer in the driver's seat, and the mold is blocking and releasing the neurotransmitters to operate the brain into doing what the mold wants. While this may sound far-fetched, we actually see this with parasites known as toxoplasmosis. Once entering the brain of mice, they will cause the mouse to move out into the open and become attracted to the smell of cat urine, which will have them eaten so that the parasite's life cycle can continue. This would indicate that possibly the mold has been around humans for a long time, and while it can affect other animals, it has grown intimately familiar with the human social standing or, in general, animal social aspects. This has allowed it to flourish by influencing the brain activity in those infected to continue infecting more through what seems like a nice invite. It also has the ability to exist within a body and on a body post-mortem. Now, whether the mold knows that others will come for it, or it's really more just likely an opportunistic infection, seeing as it knows that other creatures will come for the dead, it would be using all facets of life to further its own goal. Ultimately, the airborne capability of these spores is what's most alarming, seeing as it's able to infect and spread through the air, altering human behavior. If it should get a foothold in a larger town or even a city, there may be no good way to contain it short of nuclear options and complete decimation of the area. It would be very advantageous to immediately find the home base, so to speak, of this mold to strike, because the issue remains. All animals are fair game, and it's really just a ticking clock as to when another animal inadvertently spreads it to the human population.
But alright guys, I want to thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed this SCP video. It's been a long time since I've done SCP. I've been reading stories a lot, and I'm thinking I definitely want to get more into like SCP stuff because it's just fun to like talk about and listen to and all that good stuff. So kind of expect more of that coming in the future. I might just do like a string of SCP videos coming up here soon because I'm tired of reading stories right now. Anyhow, if you enjoyed, leaving a like would be great, and subbing is a great way to stay up to date on when I post. I'm sorry it's been so long since I've gotten anything out. I'm currently struggling on my main channel against a bunch of copyright stuff, so you know how that's always going. Anyhow, like I said, if you liked it, I would appreciate if you leave a like, and that's going to do it for me. Hope everyone enjoyed, and we'll see y'all in the next one.